So today's coaching clinic, when you think you should be further ahead. And I chose this subject because the majority of clients I work with tend to show up with a desire to be somewhere else by now, a desire to already be further ahead. And I just notice in that desire how for some clients, it truly is a desire coming from the Latin desidere, from the Father. So it truly is a planted seed from spirit to be in a different environment or in a different vocation. And then I see other clients whom that hasn't necessarily come from an inspired place. That thinking, I should be further ahead, I want to be somewhere else, I wish this was different, I wish this was better, isn't coming from an inspired place, but rather is coming from living in dissatisfaction and hoping that a change of circumstances will be the answer to the problem. So the first thing I invite you to do is to really check in on when you hear yourself saying, I should be further ahead, I wish I was further ahead, I wish I was somewhere else by now, I wish it was, just check in. Are you coming from a space of simply living dissatisfied and letting your thinking get the better of you? Or are you coming from a desire that's been planted, not by your intellect, but from something deeper within that is there to move you forward? I'm just going to mute all your lines. And then a little bit later when we come on for coaching or questions or comments, I'll unmute you. So again, I just invite you to consider that when you're in that space of, I should be further ahead, I wish I was somewhere else by now, you want to check in on where that is coming from. Because when it's coming from an aligned desire, you begin to see how life supports you in getting ahead. That was my experience as a school teacher. I admit I was dissatisfied with my job, but the seed to do something different as a vocation was planted in me. And it became it stirred up and stirred up and stirred up, not from dissatisfaction, that was just there, but from a place of momentum to get moving. And eventually, trusting that desire, I then did manifest my way out of the day job and into a whole new vocation. Now, I was speaking to a client this morning, and on today's coaching call or coaching clinic, we'll do a little bit of this discussion, and we'll do a meditation, and we'll experience various things to support you. But when I spoke to my client this morning, she has a lovely life. She doesn't have to work if she doesn't want to. But she lives in a state of hearing Bob the drunk guy in her head, who we all know is the insecure thought. She lives with him telling her constantly that she's not doing enough and that she should be further ahead. And today she finally saw more deeply that the reason she hasn't taken action in the last 5 years, even though she's been on this path of trying to find her, what else she should be doing. But the reason she hasn't taken action isn't because she's lazy and stuck and blocking herself. It's because her desire to be further ahead is coming from a judgment about where she is and how she does life at the moment. In other words, the way that she is taken out of the enjoyment of where she is when she hears her habit of thought saying, I should be further ahead by now. I shouldn't be here. I should be somewhere else. And she finally saw, after quite some time in her life trying to pursue paths that never really worked out, she finally saw that she was up against a habit of thought that kept saying, you should be doing something else. You should be further ahead. Look at all these other people. They're all much more disciplined than you, and they're all doing much better than you, and blah, blah, blah. And that was taking her away from the pure enjoyment of her current life. And it was also diminishing the role she plays currently within her family. If you really look at it deeply, she has a pretty big job to do within that family. But I'm giving you that example to help illustrate that there is a big difference between a desire being planted in your heart from spirit to be doing something else or to be somewhere else versus a habit of judgment going on in your head, telling you that you're not further ahead and taking you out of the enjoyment of where you are. Only you can know the difference. And so while many schools of thought around coaching or self-help or personal development might take the thinking, I should be further ahead, and tell you, yes, you should, and here's how we're going to do it, and you should be further ahead, and look at all these ideas that you have, and look how you never take action, and you're blocked, and there's something wrong with you, and let's figure out what's wrong with you. This school of thought right here is inviting you to consider that where you are right now is perfect. And that if you are supposed to be further ahead in a certain area or job or location or goal, that it will be less about you forcing your way through there and more about letting life invite you to that next step, to that next piece, to your new chapter. And I know you might have a hard time trusting that if you've been taking the wheel of your life for many years innocently and, making your way in this world. I know it's a big turnaround, but what I also know is that you can trust that any desire that's planted in you will come to fruition. And it's less about you being more disciplined and more committed. And it's more about you trusting that that yearning to be ahead will move you into action. It is the key to any action. And that action, in fact, will feel effortless in many ways. I remember when I wanted to leave my job, I remember that presented with the opportunity to get out. It felt, people said to me, aren't you afraid? Aren't you worried? I was I was offered the opportunity to leave my job and leave London, something I didn't want to do at the time, and leave the country and move to another country. And I wasn't afraid because I knew that my desire was coming to fruition. And I also felt that spiritual protection, that this was the path. So we don't have to get into doubts and fears and all of that when we're following a desire for change. Because the change manifests regardless of what you're doing in everyday life. The change will begin to manifest. But my God, can you have a much more graceful experience of where you are right now and who you are right now when you really get the difference between a habit of thought telling you should be further ahead and taking you out of the moment, beating you up and judging you, versus a desire in your heart that's gentle and inviting you to consider other options, to consider other steps. Most people are blind to their invitation, to life's invitation, because they're so busy trying to figure out in their head what they should do to get further ahead. It's so innocent, but it doesn't work. You efforting and figuring out and mulling over and planning over and trying to decide and thinking up, and like my client, innocently going in these directions to try and get on a path, that's all optional. That effort is optional. As you begin to relax into life's invitation for you, as you begin to notice the signs and the invitations, and you don't have to say yes to all of them, but as you begin to notice, soon enough, you're on to that new path. The way that my change of career came was in the form of my now deceased partner inviting me to move to Italy with him and sort of figure out what's next. I could have said, no, I'm not leaving London. I could have ignored the invitation. But I had the desire to be doing something else, and I had the yearning, and my actions were demonstrating in my everyday life that I wanted to be on a different path. I would leave my day job in the afternoon and I would go into the city of London and begin to immerse myself around people who were studying personal development. I didn't know it at the time, but actually I was around a lot of coaches and trainers, but I never thought of myself as one. How funny, but no surprise. So our actions in everyday life are also demonstrating whether or not we're coming from a place of true desire, or whether or not we're just falling for the habit of thought that's telling us we should be doing something. We should be further ahead. I'm a great believer in life's invitation. I'll give you a nice example that happened to me this week. So recently, a friend messaged me and said, Grace, are you thinking of coming back to London at any time? And in an instant, I was like, no. But then it occurred to me, I haven't been to London since before COVID hit. I mean, I haven't been to London even since before Francesco died. And I just sat with it. And then there was the whole Queen's funeral, and seeing that live and seeing Westminster Abbey on TV, And then I just felt this yearning inside. Oh, I'd love to go back and see how things are in London. And what I've learned to do is, rather than make a decision from a place of urgency and stress, I've learned to ask for life to show me. So I said, Spirit, give me a definite sign if I'm to go to London. And lo and behold, and I did specify today, give me a definite sign today if I'm supposed to go to London. So off I'm out walking my dog, and I happened to be in a different part of town than we usually walk in. And he started pulling me towards a particular area. And I let him do his thing. And I will post this in the Facebook group because I have the photograph. But right in front of the wall he stopped at was the word Londra in Italian. To which I said, thank you. That to me is a form of life's invitation. So then my mind began to come up with, well, why would I go to, I mean, you don't have to, what, oh, and all that effort and got to get on an airplane and this blah, blah, blah. You know, my mind could have gotten into that. But interestingly, what I found myself doing was looking at the calendar and deciding when would be best for me to go and visit. And with that, I was reminded that a friend of mine had said, if you ever want to come back to London, Grace, I have a place, and when I'm not there, you can stay there. And I thought, I wonder, does that offer still stand? And lo and behold, it did. Now I'm sharing this with you. I don't know why I'm sharing this with you. It's just coming out. But I think it's just to reiterate that we can trust in life's invitation. We can trust in a desire, yearning and stirring and building momentum. A should doesn't stir momentum. A should just gets you into judging yourself, beating yourself up, having an unrealistic expectation on yourself. Your life is demonstrating what you're really aligned with and wanting to do. And if you want to be further ahead on a certain subject, be that a vocation, finances, romance, you will find that your actions align with that without anybody having to motivate you. You will find that there's a path for you. I'd love to check in at this stage. What are you hearing fresh? Any questions, any comments, anything that you'd like to share? You can message on the chat box, or you can come on live and speak to me, which is always a pleasure. Let me know. And if there's nothing, there's nothing. That's okay. Remember that what you share is often not just for you. It tends to be for everybody else too. Okay, so Joe's writing in. Let me just have a wee look here. Is there ever a time that we have to choose through fear to create change? I don't believe so. Do you want to give Joe a little bit more context? Like, because from what I hear in that example is we get insecure and it elicits change. But that's optional. Like, I have many friends who this is just something I notice. They've gone through a breakup or a divorce, and suddenly they've lost a lot of weight. And they haven't just lost weight because of stress. They've actually gone down the gym and changed their diet because the loss has made them, in their eyes, feel insecure. So they're doing everything they can from a place of fear to change their body and their image in order to try and, keep up and deal with Bob, the drunk guy in their head, who's telling them that they might never find another partner if they don't go down the gym now. So we can create change through insecurity, but it's a damn hard way to do it, and it's hard to keep up. Let me just read here. An opportunity has come up that I kind of want to do, but I'm afraid of saying yes to it, as my head is saying it's not safe. Okay. So I totally hear that. I totally get that right now. Yeah. And I'm also going to invite you to try this. Ask for a definite sign. My example of London. Ask for a definite sign. Get into connection with your spiritual protection. And just, I really want to do this, but I'm feeling afraid. Give me a definite sign if I'm to do this. Your job then is to be on the lookout for sign or lack of sign. When we don't feel safe around something, only we can know, is that coming from a habit of scaring ourselves? Is that Bob rising up to try and keep you down? Or is that genuine wisdom alerting you to stand still? We know the difference in the feeling. The feeling of wisdom alerting us that we may not be safe, that we should hold back, is quite different to the feeling of Bob trying to scare us. So only you can know, but I'd also ask for a definite sign, because I think the more that we get into conversation with the spiritual protection that's all around us, the easier our lives become. It's not all on us to decide. I don't know if that's answered that, Joe. So do feel free to write here if not. So being further ahead is either going to feel like a heavy, draining, repetitive judgment when it's coming from a place that's not aligned, not even true. And then there's being further ahead. I should be further ahead. That comes from a creative, spiritual desire to progress, succeed, move into. But it doesn't come with a big, heavy feeling of disappointment and judgment and all the rest. That's just what we make up. So there's quite a difference. I hope you can see the difference. And by the way, for those of you interested, I am coming to London. I have booked my trip to London. And on Tuesday, the 11th of October, I will be inviting a small group of you to get together with me. So if you're interested in coaching and a champagne style experience, get in touch. I have about 12 spaces for that. So if you'd like to join me live in London, this will be a very intimate, small gathering. exploring your new chapter and anything else you want coaching on, particularly anything that you want to be further ahead on, get in touch, gracefulcoaching@gmail.com, and you can book a space with me to join me in London Live on Tuesday, the 11th of October. So where are you at now? So is there a question? Is there a comment? Is there anything coming up that you want to ask? You can write in the chat box or you can come on the screen.
Grace, I have a question.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. No, let the other person.
Oh,
okay. So we'll go Diane and then Wendy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Grace, my question is, I feel like I do both, depending on my mood. But when I'm in a low mood or a fearful mood of, generally it's panicking about money, if I'm talking mostly right now about career things. What would you suggest when you get to that place? Like, because I can spin around there for a while, and I know it's a waste of energy, and then I judge myself for being in that place, right? And how do I get back to the place where I had more energy and more guidance? And so, yeah, just any suggestions other than maybe have compassion and try not to force anything, because I don't know how to get out of that place sometimes.
Yeah. So let me just clarify. So the place you get into is you get worried about money. Is that correct?
Yeah, or all the things that I'm behind. I feel I'm behind on now, or I should have done many years ago, so I wouldn't be in this place now.
Okay. Yeah.
And then
so
that keeps me from going forward on the list of things that I have been excited to take the next step for, right? Because I'm in a kind of in that low mood. There's this self-criticism and fear that almost feels very paralyzing in those moments.
Yeah. So I hear you living with regrets, Diane, or thinking that where you are today is because you didn't take whatever action you think you should have taken in the past. Is that correct?
I think that's half of it, and maybe it's more than half, but the other piece, that, and then I think there's a separate piece, which is just not being able to move forward in those moments because I almost like I get overwhelmed with what do I do first, and
So my suggestion isn't so much a suggestion as it is something for you to see more deeply about how you're using thought against yourself.
Right. Yeah.
There's something about you as in all of us, we all do this, Diane. When we get freedom of mind from the thinking that's telling us or what we've done wrong and criticizing us, we kind of get less interested in our psychology, and we end up in the key to action. The key to action really is this freedom of mind. We get into forward movement. Now, I know that doesn't answer your question completely right here and right now, but it's just to say, it sounds to me as though you're pretty hard on yourself. And that's just become a habit of thought you keep listening to, which in turn gives us a lot of noise, which in turn means we don't even have the mental bandwidth for taking action on where to start.
Right, but I think that was kind of the question. When I'm in those moods of being hard on myself, because I know
Yeah.
I come in and out of them,
Yeah.
I'm aware that that's a mood and those are a habit of, I'm aware of all of that, right? It's more like, okay, now I see that. Where do I go from here? And maybe it's just, you have to wait till the mood shifts. But I am aware of all of that, right? Like, oh, here this is again, and it's a habit of thought, and it's being hard on myself. It's a pattern. And then,
But see, when you see that deeply enough, Diane, everything shifts. Right now, I hear you seeing it and naming it and sort of a little fed up with it, right? Like we all would be. What I'm inviting you to consider is that there's a level of seeing that you've got, and that's great, because that's when you're starting to wake up big time to how you're using thought against yourself. But there's a deeper seeing that wipes that out from preventing you from taking action. And so, is there something for you to do? Well, that will become obvious. Right now, it sounds like there's a deeper level of seeing in this area that would support you.
well, there's something that just shifted when you said that. What I saw was it's really just the judgment of the pattern. And if I just see the pattern without judging the pattern, then it's almost like there's a shift, like, oh, okay, that's just a pattern. That's not me. That's not, I'm doing something wrong. That's just the conditioned pattern. And then I could feel a shift even in that moment.
There you go. You just jumped a level.
Right. So I think it's just,
There are different levels.
just seeing another level of it, of that insight. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. There are infinite levels of seeing, and the deeper you see, I don't mean just name your pattern, the deeper you see,
Right.
the less compelling the habit of judgment
Right.
becomes.
I saw another pattern right after that, though, which was, then I get ready to do these next steps and I can see there's a fear of having what I want, because then I could be judged, or I'm not, you know what I mean? Then there's another layer, right, that I'm having to maybe work with that layer.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's what I invite you to do just now. You've just seen something helpful. The mind might want to go to the next problem. Right. I'm going to invite you to just get control of Bob for a sec and just appreciate that you just saw something on a deeper level. What's very innocent in all of us is this kind of jumping to the next problem without even really being able to appreciate and acknowledge what's just shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not dismissing that there may be a fear that you want to see something fresh around, but it will drive you insane to keep looking at the psychology in your mind and finding what's next to look at. Can I make a suggestion where the when you're scaring yourself about money?
Sure.
So, like, money's not the exception. It's the other. It's just a flavor of thought, and it is a place that many put a gun to their head about. Is there something to do? Well, I personally have found it on my journey really helpful to immerse myself in the truth when it comes to money. And for me, the truth is found in a lot of the sharings of Florence Shin, who I might have mentioned last week. She was the foremother to metaphysics, and to Louise Hay based a lot of her work on Florence Shin's findings. Then there are tons of other authors out there that, but you want to look for some original teachings that you connect with, Diane. And this is for everybody. Sometimes when we're afraid, what takes the gun down is hearing truth, reading truth, remembering truth, and immersing ourselves for a period of time around that truth. Because when you don't see it in an area, when you haven't had a shift in an area, you haven't had an insight in a particular area, of course you can do things to support yourself in taking the gun away. So I highly recommend, and I do this with most of my clients on the money thing, like, have a look at the teachings of Florence Shin. Have a look at I mean, I'm sure there are lots of others out there. I just happen to really connect deeply with hers. Have a listen to truth when you're scaring yourself. One of the other things I love to do is, if I'm scaring myself about something, you know, I'll listen to the original recordings of Sydney Banks. Settling down. We're hearing truth, remembering truth. We are allowed to put an oxygen mask on when the plane is turbulent or going down. Is this helpful at all?
Thank you.
Yeah. Just typing in there, Florence Shin is the name. Diane, thank you for your question. It helps everybody. And also, I love that you just saw something fresh on another level. There are infinite levels. Wendy, I'm coming to you, darling. Would you still like
so much? I have to jump off in a few minutes, but thank you,
You're
everybody.
welcome.
Somebody did ask Grace whether this was being recorded. They put in the
Oh, it
chat.
is. Yeah, you get the recording.
Thank you for your time. Diane's question was really useful, actually, really useful, and I think it's answered some of what was on my mind. I have a feeling of stuckness and at the moment, and weariness. I know why some of it came about. I was having to support a couple of people, and although I'm normally good at that, it was physically demanding, and it went on for a long time. And I think it's given me a kind of sort of a shift in my mind. That's and what I've been. It was useful, Diane's question. I feel like I'm with the principles at the moment. I feel like I'm just doing the principles instead of enjoying them. You know, thinking I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to read this, and I've got to volunteer here. But just now, I think what's been coming to me lately is do nothing, and it comes to me, and then I do the but I think it's quite hard to just do nothing, you know, and put it all down. I mean, I work in education, and that's lovely. I think I do need to just do nothing, maybe do some pick up some, listen to some Sid and a bit of self-care instead of all this doing. I think, yeah, I think I answered it. The answer came to me.
Brilliant.
But yeah, and
And
accept it.
I'm here to confirm that when you're hearing your wisdom inviting you to do nothing, that often is the precursor to everything that you're feeling stuck around, because we need mental as well as energetic space.
That I've got an overload of thought, and this do nothing, it's like it's coming in the door and I'm shoving it back out. So yeah, it's nice. Diane's question was lovely.
Fantastic.
I think I'm okay. Thank you.
Great.
You. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, Wendy. It helps everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else got a comment or a question, something they want to share? Now's the time before we go into our meditation.
Quick question. Hi, sorry I'm late coming into the call, but thanks for hosting, Grace.
Yeah, sure. Good to hear from you, Kelly.
Always a pleasure to see you, and hello to the group. I have just come off a wonderful vacation, and I feel like I did get some of that mental space we were just talking about. No screens for 17 days was beautiful. And it took me a long time to have any energy to even think about anything, but I am in the midst of a transition to a new chapter. And the question is, I guess what came to mind from a fresh thought space was, while I was swimming, to create 3 viable options, kind of between now and December. And then I'm really trying to practice this idea of fresh thought and let it unfold. And I brainstormed just taking pieces of paper and walking it on my floor of how far could I go to think about it. But my question is, it was been an interesting practice, but I think there's a part of me still trying to solve it. And I just wondered, the reason why I like the word viable was, I think sometimes in the spirit of the context of this session, is I scare myself. I generate so many possibilities, or they're so big, or they're so unclear. I thought viable meant for me, knowing it would feel good. It would feel kind of exciting. And I just kind of wondered, it's so funny. It's like I'm coming to ask a question, and I never know quite how to frame the question, but it's kind of like what Diane was referring to earlier of is what you're saying is just even then calming down even more, in terms of the infinite levels of awareness, slow down even more. It's felt okay for what I've done. And then I speed up a bit, and then that feels pretty uncomfortable. So that's kind of my question. Is what I think I'm in the same conversation here. Just curious if there's any other angle on that you hear freshly in there, Grace.
Well, I'm kind of, I hope I've got this right, but we can check on it. I'm kind of hearing, if I slow down, will it help or hinder what I'm trying to create?
Yeah, I feel like I know the old way I would do it is I try to think it through.
Yeah.
Okay, here's 3 options and pros and cons, which never really works for me anyway, but somehow I've made some decision called viable options. I need 3 viable options. I know that it came from a good place when I had the original thought. So yeah, is it just hanging with that longer and letting that be? Is it slowing down? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not even sure if slowing down is what I'm trying to say, but.
Well, here's the thing, Kelly. It's about waiting well. Often we get a download of something we want to do. And then we kind of go about trying to figure out what that is and how to do it and bring it into place. When actually we want to learn to wait well for the rest of the information. So that's what I'm hearing is you may have come up with these viable options.
Mhm.
They're just right now you're waiting well to get clear on what those are for you. And 3 might become 2, or 2 might
Yeah.
become 1. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Well, I would say what has come since then is like, oh, you probably only need one. It just has to really resonate. What you mean by viable is resonates and it excites you. And it's
Yeah.
okay if there's a few things unfolding, but I love that waiting well is actually good. I think that what you've articulated is, oh, I think I have been, but there's an infinite number of levels of waiting well. That's what I'm taking from what you're saying a little bit. And allow
Good.
more download, allow it to keep coming delightfully.
Yeah. And my full permission, as I know you don't need it, but my full permission to do so, because it is the way that things get born in the world. We wait well, we create mental and energetic bandwidth. We're literally plugging into the mains, and from there we get what we need. So enjoy the wait.
Mhm.
Thank
That's
you.
beautiful. Yeah, thanks.
I'm going to move us on now to close with a gentle meditation. And I hope this has been helpful. I will be here for a coaching clinic next Tuesday at the same time. So, come join us, be in the space, experience the whole thing, and just let yourself receive. I think a lot of the times we don't realize that there's so much out there that can help us to ground and come to center and get our downloads. And because we're so busy minded, we just don't always see the opportunity, but life's invitation is always there for you. So let's go into this gentle meditation to finish our coaching clinic today, where we can literally tap into life's invitation for you. Instead of shooting yourself to be further ahead, let's see what you're being invited to progress on, and just anything that comes from there. So join me now as we close our eyes and just begin to breathe to the count of 4 for in and out. Just really settling the breath in for 4, out for 4. In and out. And see roots coming from your feet down through the ground, down into the underground, and right down to a rock at the bottom of the earth, and wrap those roots around that rock. This is the rock of your divine nature. There's golden light emanating from this rock. And it's coming up now through the rock, through the ground, through your floorboards, and into your feet. Now take a few moments to move that golden light all the way around your body, through your body, especially any areas that are painful or tense right now. Go ahead and move the light through your body. Feel every cell awakened and alive with vitality and vibrancy. as this golden light pours in and around and heals and cleanses and clarifies. And don't forget the back of your body, the spine, all the muscles and the shoulders. Just don't forget to move it from the front to the back and from left to right. This golden light healing you, supporting you, and moving you. And I want you just to imagine yourself stepping onto a beautiful golden path. And this path has many different directions. At the end of the path, you could go in so many different directions. Choose a path to go on. Your first choice, your instinct. Consider what this path is about for you. Let life show you some of the things on the path that will help you as you're just walking along. Don't worry if images don't come to mind, but get in connection with asking for a definite sign. Just know that choosing this path was not about getting on the right path. It was about being led onto a particular path that life is inviting you to experience, enhance, do differently. Just notice how you feel on the path. The sun is beaming down upon you. Give thanks to life that you're on the right path, even if you feel you should be further ahead right now today. Give thanks to life that you're on the right path and that there's a desire stirring in you for something fresh. Knowing you can trust that you can ask for signs about that as you get still and connect with that, it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. If there's anything to do, you find yourself doing it. This flies in the face of trying to discipline yourself, motivate yourself, compete with yourself, concentrate yourself, and instead opens you up to life living you. Give thanks to life that it knows what it's doing, even if you think you should be doing it differently. See yourself with arms stretched out wide, giving thanks to life for having you on the correct path. No mistakes, no regrets, no shoulda, woulda, coulda, wish I hadn't have. Just everything playing out the way it's supposed to. Feel yourself connected to life living you. And now just come back to this moment, to this space. Feel your body in the chair or on the bed, the sofa. Feel your feet firmly planted on the floor. And see those roots coming down through the ground, into the underground, right down to a rock at the bottom of the earth. And wrap those roots around that rock. Feel yourself centered, connected, guided, clear, and able to move through the rest of your day. Not with habits of thought about where you should be and judgments on where you are, but rather hearing and feeling the desires of your heart and what's yearning in you that life will move you towards. I hope this has been helpful for everybody. Thank you for being here. Every Tuesday at the same time, coaching clinic is available. And if you'd like to join me in London, get in touch and I'll share with you the invitation that's on offer for Tuesday, the 11th of October. Lots of love and see you soon. Ciao.